Paul's out in L.A., wink, wink, right now. We'll get the band back together, man, in a couple months. And I was like, next stop, WWE. Dreamer told me that they were getting ready to do me and C.W. Anderson for the TV title and with Rhino and all this stuff. And I think Paul saw me as somebody who he probably could have made some money with at that point. I never envisioned myself as like a 30-year lifer or anything. I didn't. It's not feasible in today's product. It's not. I always kind of scratched my head. First of all, I'm like, how long does Danny Doring's shoot interview last? His career wasn't fantastic. I mean, it's not a knock on him, but it's reality. So when I would see it, I'm like, he's bringing me up in a shoot interview? For what fucking reason? I've never told this story publicly, but I am telling you right now, a locker room of Hiding Right, Horseshoe, Tom Arnold, Tom Howard, all these legitimate fucking nutcase killer guys, they wanted to kill Danny and Roadkill because they thought they gave off a crummy vibe. He didn't go to OVW either. Roadkill was smart. And Roadkill did that because he knew he could milk at least a year or two out of it, which he did.
Right.
Piece of shit. Well, he went there as a mercy contract to Dreamer, let's be honest. I mean, there was a bunch of guys who got favor contracts because Tom Hughes had a developmental. Here's a little short story. I was in John's office the day they released Danny from his contract. Roadkill was universally despised by everybody in OVW. And when it came time, when he even got released from his deal, he was staying there for free to help be the booker and write the show and shit. And for free, Danny Davis had to look at him and basically say, you just can't come around here anymore. A real a true visionary of the business, Bruce Pritchard, comes down, and somehow he saw Roadkill, whatever, and he had this big master plan. He fucking pitched this on the Vince McMahon jet one night, and Johnny told me this verbatim, that Bruce pitched a big idea to Vince that he found the guy to wrestle The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I am not shitting you when I tell you this, and it was Roadkill. I remember arguing with Eddie Guerrero before that show. And you know what we fucking argued about?
Finish.
Yep. Not as bad as Gino and Dapper. Sims is a carny, and you know what Sims is. He's not as villainous and cantankerous as the other two. He gave me a line he gives everybody. You'll probably be down there for about 2 or 3 months, and it'll be on the main road. 2 years later, I was still at OVW. They can learn from Rip, who's the best trainer in the world. Rip created Simon Dean as far as in-ring, because I wouldn't have had the ability to be Simon if it wasn't for Rip. You know when the first time I fucking talked to Cornette about coming to WWE was? Carluzzo's funeral. We're sitting there and everybody's shooting the shit, and Jimmy pulls me aside and says, what are you doing now? And I told him, ECW's closed, blah, blah. He goes, man, I have Nova here, who's literally not only better than anybody I have on my roster left right now, but he's better than 3/4 of the guys you have up here right now. For him to come here every day and just break his body down and kill himself is a waste of time. I'm going to show him more behind the scenes of this shit. And there was actually talk before I got pulled up assignment of making me an assistant trainer down there. ECW was bastardized down there, man, because Cornette hated Paul.
Right.
And ECW was considered garbage wrestling, and they hated it. So I show up down there. First guy I met down there, and he's a friend to this day, is Matt Morgan. I met him the night before my first training session. He was depressed. Then he went down to Puerto Rico and he reinvented himself. He went down to Puerto Rico. He spent a year and a half down there eating sand sandwiches and drinking ocean water. Man, he wasn't making shit. But Carlos took care of him the best he could. He really reinvented himself down there. They rehired him. They put him down in FCW. He grew the beard, got the robe, and he created Damian Sandow 100%. He's another guy that wasn't a promo guy until he got a chance.
Right.
And now he's one of the best characters on the show. I truly like John Cena, top-notch pro in California and UPW. When I first met him as a prototype, worked his ass off. He's a true fan of the business. Jimmy Cornette, I called him from Tokyo about 2 weeks before I started OVW, just to check in and say, hey, I'm finishing up here, I'm on my way. Jim Cornette laid out the first 3 months of what I was going to do down there, including beating Cena on the first night,
right.
All these shows we were going to wrestle, main eventing Six Flags. When I was in the office, I used to look at the schedule that Ann would keep for him, and his schedule was unlike no other. His schedule was more than The Rock's or Stone Cold's or any of those guys, because a lot of the guys used to say no to a lot of shit. I'm not going here on my off day. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. John Cena never stopped. I mean, even to see his body, and I do think that John's career will end early because of injury. I do think that eventually his body will just break down. And but Chris Kanyon got a bad deal in this business, because I just watched it again a couple weeks ago, where I guess they probably eventually suspected that he was gay in WWE or whatever it was. And I remember when they did that stupid fucking Boy George skit where they had him come out of a wooden... Chris had literally almost died in the hospital. He had a shoulder surgery that went wrong, and it got infected, and he lost all this weight. And he would come down to OVW time to time and stay for months at a time, dude, on his own dime. When you're in WWE, you become a creature of a different beast. And you do things that you're not really proud of to others, and you conduct yourself in a certain way to survive, so maybe it doesn't happen to you. And I felt like Doug did that a little bit. Hey, this can go one way or it can go the other way. But you said some shit for no fucking reason, Renee. You should have been a lot... I don't know why, because everybody in OVW hated Renee. They thought he was entitled, he was spoiled, he was lazy. I didn't see that. I saw a young guy who was coming in, who was just going to bide his time there to go up to the main roster and make money. I didn't begrudge him of that. Because I never gave a shit when Carlito would come in. And people be like, oh, Carly's lazy. Carly's not lazy. Carly's been wrestling since he was 6. These guys are born in it. They paid more dues than any of us. And said, I have a problem, Nova. I really have a problem, man. I need help. I said, we're going to get you help, Renee. And I said, God is my witness, man. He'll tell you, Renee. Should tell you. He should be honest about it. I went to Johnny Ace and we sent him to rehab. And I said, I'm going to check in with you, Renee. I'm going to call you every couple weeks and see how you're doing. If you ever need anything, let me know, the whole deal. And I did that for him. So for him to come out in his fucking shoot interview and say how I changed with all this power and shit, you ask, if Rene Dupree can sit in front of me and tell me that I didn't save his job and send him to rehab, he's a fucking liar. And it's bullshit. I actually was one of the few people that felt bad too when Bob Holly tuned him up. And he got his ass beat. He deserved to get his ass beat. So they sent me this excerpt and it says, his exact verbiage was, Simon Dean was a stooge. And they gave him a job in the office because he was a stooge and nobody was sad to see him go. And I'm saying to myself, really, Bob? You wrote a fucking book and you took time out of your way to bury me? What the fuck? I mean, Bob Holly is unjustly by some, but universally one of the more unliked guys in wrestling. Let's be honest here, right? I like Stephanie McMahon was cool to me. I think she's a very shrewd businesswoman, a very smart businesswoman. A lot of people shit on Steph and they bury her. She's fucking Vince's daughter, dude. How could she not be smart about this business? I saw it firsthand. Stephanie McMahon is ruthless. She's smart. She's intelligent. She has all the makings of what you need to be a successful CEO in the business world. Right? Vince McMahon, but next to my dad, is the most influential guy I ever met. I still, to this day, can't fathom how Michael Hayes lives after what happened at that time with him. I put my arm, I got out from behind the desk, I put my arm on Vince on the side, and I said, boss, I see infomercials. And he looked at me and he goes, that's fucking fantastic. And I'm like, wow, they're really going for this. I'm like, holy shit. Here I am thinking I'd be fired today, and this guy's biting my shit. So Vince is like, this is great. You can get the purple jumpsuit. You know, you can get a jumpsuit like Jack LaLanne. We can do these products. We can make fun of these fat motherfuckers. Like, going on and on. I'm like, yeah, man, this is going to be great. I spend so many hours, Rob, and if you're a developmental guy out there watching this right now, I will tell you this. I don't know, whatever you've done to try to make it to the main roster, multiply that times probably 2, and that's what I did. I'm getting ready for my dart match. I have my wedding ring and my watch and shit. I'm getting ready to go do my dart match. I said, shit, I don't want to leave back here. I threw him in my gym bag, and for whatever reason, I picked up the gym bag and walked to the ring with it. And I come back after the match, and Vince is like, why'd you bring a gym bag to the ring? I said, I have no idea. And he goes, I love it. He goes, I wish more people would take risks here. He goes, you obviously know what's over the line and what isn't. Just keep doing your stuff in good taste, man. Just run with it. Do whatever. He literally looks at me and goes, do whatever you want to do. Jericho, and he gave me a really good pep talk. He didn't have to do that. He remembered it years later. I wrestled him a couple times on Raw. Each time he would literally come to me and say, hey, man, do whatever you want to do out there. You call it. You want to end it with the lion tamer? And yeah, do this to tamer. We'll do the walls. And let me think of a way to get into the walls at the end. I'll involve my gym bag somehow. He goes, yeah, do whatever you want. You just call the match. Great. Boogeyman duty. We had Boogeyman with us.
What was Boogeyman duty? What did that consist of?
Marty Wright was a 40-something-year-old man who was literally incapable of I know this is going to sound unbelievable, but they did not feel that Marty was capable of going to an airport, getting on a plane, arriving to another airport, getting a rental car because he had no license, and showing up at a building which would have required reading directions and entering the building on his own without parental supervision. Bobby Lashley told me many times in confidence that I was his favorite opponent in WWE because I was the only guy who never tried to make him look like shit. And I took a lot of pride in that. The highlight of my professional wrestling career was trying to sell Stone Cold Steve Austin Simon shit in LA. And Paul London is quite bizarre. I mean, he's a good guy too. They were both incredibly underrated. They could take bumps, they could work. They were a pleasure to work with, man. An announcer on SmackDown. Before I got head developmental, they tried me out as an announcer.
Yeah, you can talk about it.
And it was to replace Tazz because they were going to redo ECW and Tazz was going to do that. And I remember Hunter coming up to me, and Hunter didn't want me to be an announcer. Hunter wanted me to take over developmental. And he didn't. I don't think Hunter liked Tazz that much because he was like, look at him, man. He's like, watch, I guarantee you, dude, all day long, he's going to be following you around and just asking you what you've heard about this. And because Tazz didn't want to leave SmackDown. He wanted to stay on SmackDown. So sure enough, we're in the lunchroom, and I'm sitting there, and Tazz comes over and sits right next to me. He's like, brother, what'd you hear, man? Like, ask me. And I'm looking around, and I just look behind me. I see Hunter just drinking his water, just like laughing. I was like, oh, shit. Tazz is always good to me. He just had a ton of heat with a lot of people, dude. What are you going to do? Back to the hotel, everybody goes to the rooms, and somehow me, Tank, and Jillian got caught in the hallway by JBL and Benoit. And the only things that they were missing were literal, like, fucking pitchforks and torches, dude. And they're hunting for Justin Roberts. And I remember them finding his hotel room, and I just remember, I mean, God, I hate speaking ill of the dead. I remember Benoit knocking on his door so violently that I was sitting there praying to myself, please do not open this door, Justin. If you're in there, please don't open this. Your boy's got some fucking heat. And I go, who's my boy? And they go, watching the Battle Royal tonight, man, Muhammad. And we had a Battle Royal. I just remember everybody, like, legitimately beating him up. And this is in Hawaii. I can't believe that I'm still having this conversation 6 or 7 years later with guys who are like, oh, you know, maybe down the line, you know, Hall of Fame. Well, what the fuck are you talking about? He strangled his wife and killed her, and he murdered his son. And just one after another, because I know these guys were like, what? How the fuck did Nova get picked for that job? Because, you dumb fucks. I have a college degree, and I'm smart, and I busted my ass. That's why. So is anybody that heat with the fact that I got an opportunity? What? I didn't understand why the heat was on me for saying yes for an opportunity. I tried to be good. I hired a lot of guys, too, man.
Yeah.
You know, we'll get into that. Dreamer's days in developmental at HQ were literally spent walking around. He'd work out, have lunch, and he used to walk around sticking thumbtacks in his head or taking his shit in different offices or just doing, yeah, I mean, that's what he did all day.
Right.
Paul sitting there asking for Beth Phoenix, and I said, well, I can't get her, Paul. I don't do that. Well, Tommy could do it. I said, okay, well, all I can do is give you the information, where she's at, give you the pictures, the bio, you can talk to her, what do you want to do? You guys are the writers. If you want her, you can get her. Well, why can't you get her? I said, well, I can't. Actually, Paul, I got a lot to do right now. I got work to get on right here. I said, can you give me a couple minutes, man? I'll get with you in a little bit. He walked out of my office. I got up. I walked into Johnny Ace. I had to go through Ann's office first. I said, I would appreciate if he never came to my office again, ever. And Johnny looked at me and goes, you probably won't have to worry about that much longer. I said, enough said. I walked out, and a month later, he was gone.
Wow.
I detest Bruce Pritchard. I'll tell you why I detest Bruce. I have empathy towards Bruce. Bruce's last run in WWE, is he still in TNA or no?
No.
That's a shock. And his last end in WWE ended when he apparently pulled a gun on a writer. I heard he pulled a gun on a writer's assistant and he got rid of him. Whatever. They were wanting to get Bruce's function in WWE always to me was, it was described as he's the McMahon's like pet dog that laughs at all their jokes and says, ha ha ha, good one. Or Bruce Pritchard, I would like to probably give a bullet to. Dr. Tom Pritchard, I would fucking take a bullet for.
Wow.
If the business had eventually down the line turned me into that, fuck that, man. I would much rather be remembered as a good businessman, a banker, a college grad, a good father, a husband, all that shit turn into that guy.